And joining me now to take a look behind the scenes of sci-fi is Tyson Donnelly, a visual effects expert. Thanks for joining us, Tyson.
Thanks, Ray. Awesome to be here.
I'm super excited to find out what do you do?
Well, my background is in compositing. That's how I sort of started in visual effects. And so compositing is sort of the video version of Photoshop in a way. And you sort of combine different elements like a green screen and an explosion and make it all look like it was filmed through the camera the first time, if you're good enough at it, I suppose. And then from there, I sort of moved into visual effects supervision, which is a step up from there where you're sort of overseeing all the creative aspects of a project, and you're working with the client-side supervisor and the director to sort of execute their overall vision, of course with a team of your own to help do the work and make it look great. So it's a dynamic and interesting role, but every film is a bit different.
And how did you get into this field?
Bit of a random start. I wasn't quite sure what I was going to do, but I used to make little video slideshows for the family, and that sort of turned into me wanting to be an editor. So I did do a film degree and went down that path, but eventually sort of landed on more After Effects and special effects type stuff that I wanted to do. So I got a job doing coffee at a post-production house and worked my way up there and, got a lot of advice from the people that worked there. I then went on to, the government did a placement scheme to get people started in the industry. So they would pay for you to work full time for 6 months. And then the company could take you on risk-free. And that's when I sort of, had my first job in I'd say the real industry, and then worked on The Avengers as my first film, which was quite a cool experience as a fanboy of those at the time. So.
And The Matrix Resurrections is nominated for Best Film at the Eye on Sci-Fi Awards, and I heard that you worked on that film.
Yeah, that was my final film in London before I moved back to Australia just at the end of last year. So yeah, I got to be the VFX supervisor for that at the company I was working at. So the way visual effects films mostly work is probably up to, on the bigger films, up to 10 companies work on it simultaneously. So we were one of those, and we had our very specific sequences. And the place I worked at was sort of known as a bit more abstract creative solutions for scenes, as opposed to a big destruction scene or something like that.
And what else have you worked on that you really enjoyed?
It's been a variety of projects. I think early on I started on a lot of Marvel projects, sort of like Iron Man 3 and Avengers Age of Ultron. There was a lot of hologram-based visual effects, which I think we sort of got known as the hologram people for a while. So did a lot of that work, which was quite cool. And Age of Ultron did Jarvis and the Ultron hologram, heavily involved in the sort of design process. That was when I was just compositing, not supervising, but it was still me and a effects artist working together along with a supervisor, try to come up with ideas of how do you represent a organic thinking machine hologram in a very bright lab. But yeah, there's that. And then the Hunger Games was a really cool project, doing the hologram training sequence for that one as well. And then later I did a TV series called The Letter for the King, which was a Netflix series, which was also a fun experience because I was supervising at that time and got to go out on set in Prague and see the bigger behind the scenes in person, which was quite a cool experience.
So it sounds like you work on a lot of sci-fi projects and things like that. Is there a specific type of work that you need to do to execute in order to work on sci-fi projects? And
a little bit. It's you always start with your science and your research. It's the way most sci-fi does, and then from there you sort of investigate what tells the story and what essentially looks cool. Not to undervalue the thought and effort that people put in, but at the end of the day, it's a visual medium and you're trying to communicate an idea to an audience. So, I'd say with the black hole from Interstellar, for example, they went way more sciencey than probably most films do, but they still had to come up with a visual way to represent that wormhole, even though it was based on an equation. There were still touches that you put in to make it more visually appealing for the audience. So there's definitely it's definitely a balance of you always reference science and you reference reality because you need to, but holograms don't exist more or less in the way that they do in films in real life. So there's some sort of judgment, there's some sort of creativity you need to bring to how you represent that in a believable way on screen. So yeah, it's quite varied in that way.
Do you ever think about what the audience reaction would be to what you're working on? And
mostly the frustrating of we've spent 3 months on this really small detail in the back that no one's ever going to see, and even if it's just they've shot a little bit of set and you've had to patch this tiny bit of set across 100 shots, and it's just something that no one would ever see, but it's part of the work. But definitely with the holograms and that sort of stuff, there's a lot of thought that's put into the animation and the design and the execution and what every little bit of text says, and it's quite intensive work. But I think many people probably just wouldn't see it when it flashes by or when they're watching it on their phone. And I think that was one of our worries about The Matrix, is that it was going to be one of the first sort of big blockbusters released direct to HBO Max. So we were like, oh, we've done this 4K really detailed work, and people are going to wake up in the morning and watch it on their phone screen. But you got to sell for all mediums, and that's what we do.
So if someone said to you, we can fix it in post, how would you react to that? Oh, chills.
Chills, triggered. Yes, the classic line, fix it in post. Yeah, it does happen all the time. And my response is, how much money do you have? Because it's always comes down to that time and money and artist capacity. There's very little that they can't fix in post. Will it be good in the time frame and all of that? Who is to say? But there is often, either through necessary creative direction changes where they have to sort of utilize something that wasn't shot for that intention to make the story work, and I think that is somewhat more justified. But then there's other times where people might not have thought things through as much of what they wanted, and then you somehow end up in a completely different direction in post. But from being on set a few times, you also see there is just no time on set. Like, it's shoot, we've got to move to the next thing, we've got to figure out this shot, and the visual effects guy's like, oh, hey, can we just stop and like shoot a clean plate? But there often isn't time for that, and that's just one of the realities of post-production. But yeah, it's
And how do you find the approach of some directors who want to do everything practically, and especially with Star Wars, having that rich history of a lot of things being practical? Does that make your job easier, or?
It doesn't. Like, when a film generally, generalization will always benefit from having more practical sets and practical things, if not only for the actors to be in a mindset and have something to interact with that's physical, and from that point of view, I think that changes. Even from a cinematography point of view, it's like, if you've got a representation of this big monster in frame, the DOP knows how to frame to get the actor and make a shot that works and tells a story. Whereas sometimes you don't know how big this thing's going to be, and they've shot it here, and then we put our monster that's meant to be 3 meters tall and its head's cut off, and that doesn't make sense as a shot. So there's those sort of things. And then there's sort of the further step, obviously, with the volume stage that like The Mandalorian did a lot. You get all the great benefits of real lighting and mostly a background you can use, and just a sense of realism that you just don't quite get if it's all green screen. So whenever they can do practical, great. A lot of the time, practical stuff is replaced or enhanced in post-production. A set wasn't finished to the quality that the director wanted, so it can be touched up, or that explosion they did was cool but not big enough, so we're just going to add another explosion over the top. But at the same time, you've got the cue of the real explosion, so you've got something to follow. You've got a set that is mostly done, so again, you're just following something. So it does help, but it's not. Rarely it's like, oh, practical, we're done. So
Don't need us anymore.
Yeah, it can be a mixed bag, but there's a whole gamut of films that do that to different degrees. It's hard to generalize.
And where would you say, where do you see the visual effects industry in 5 years from now?
The robots will take our jobs.
Is that possible?
There'll be more and more technology. I do think inevitably, don't come for me, robots, but like there still needs to be some level of human creativity to make all this work. So I do think we're still some time off, automated stuff. But every day, the face replace, deep fake stuff, getting better and better and great. That's like one tool to help us execute, broader shots and broader ideas. So I just think the technology will keep getting more advanced, but at the same time, I think concepts and what you want to achieve will get bigger and bigger. So and technology has a way of keeping up with itself. Same with computers. They're trillions of times faster than they were, but they still seem slow with what we're trying to do today. So I do think it will keep like that. I think more so it will be interesting to see how like the practical shooting side evolves, like how far the volume Mandalorian stage stuff has come in the short time it's been in process. I think all that side of things will get better and better and cooler, and a lot more information, and even like what they're doing with Avatar, a lot of really advanced motion capture and all of that. So I think that technology will just keep getting better and better. But I'm telling myself we'll keep our jobs for now without the AI automation coming for us. Panic.
Well, I hope to see you again in 5 years.
Yeah, thanks. Ask me that question then.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today.
Of course, it was great to be here. Thanks for having me.